Call the meeting to order. I would like to invite Diane Whitfield to come forward and lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Monday, June 15th meeting of the Mayor and Council of the City of Roswell. I'd like to begin this meeting by reading a proclamation regarding National Safety Month to recognize Roswell's efforts to keep this as a safe place to work. Whereas the observance of National Safety Month focuses on safety risk and tips for the home, the workplace, driving, and the community, and whereas the National Safety Council estimates that nearly 110,000 Americans die from preventable causes and 20 million suffer disability injuries from preventable causes, and whereas the leading cause of injury and death are car crashes, falls, drowning, and fire, these unfortunate events are especially tragic because they are by and large preventable. And whereas Roswell citizens desire to live in a community that supports safe and healthy living, and whereas the City of Roswell endeavors to identify, mitigate, and prevents accidents within the workplace and for its citizens in all public infrastructures, facilities, and events, and whereas the summer season, traditionally a time of increased accidental injuries and fatalities, is an appropriate time to focus attention on injury risk and prevention, and whereas the City of Roswell Public Works Environmental Department has created and developed the SAFE, S-A-F-E, Safety Awareness for Everyone, team to promote safety for all of our employees in all of our city operations. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim June 2009 as National Safety Month and encourage all of our citizens, our businesses, our city employees, and everyone in the audience to learn more about health and safety practices for home, work, and play, and to take necessary steps to reduce the serious injury and death. And with that, I would like Stu Mooring, who is with our Public Works Environmental Department, to tell us what we're doing in more detail to create a safe city.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can describe for you what is being done within the Public Works Environmental Department. Yvonne Douglas, our Deputy Director, is responsible and has developed the SAFE team, and they have done monthly seminars for staff to acquaint them with safety measures. She has made an arrangement for a number of gifts from the 3M, the safety vests and things of that nature that have been provided to our staff, and they do monthly training on a variety of things, how to lift properly and proper vehicle safety and so forth. And she coordinates very closely with Wendy Adamy in risk management in the HR department, and together we are developing a valuable program that we trust will continue to reduce workman's comp issues and improve the overall safety for our staff.
Mr. Mooring, thank you for making this a safer city, and anything we can do to make it even more safer, let us know. I'll try to be careful out on those roads, in my car, on my scooter, and on my bicycle.
I know Robin will appreciate it.
Let's have a hand for safety in Roswell. At this time, I'd like to call upon Councilman Tollison for a couple of good announcements before we get into the meat of this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first announcement is that once again, both of our high schools, public high schools, Centennial and Roswell, have made the list of Newsweek magazine's top 1,500 public high schools in America. So we're very proud of them. Centennial at number 375, Roswell at number 456. So both made the top third of the public high schools in the country. and we're proud of all they do to make Roswell a great place to live and learn. Second announcement comes from Mr. Mooring. I hear the drought is officially over, at least by government terms, and you have an announcement for us.
Yes, sir, I do. I think most people are aware that last week, Dr. Couch, the director of the Georgia Environmental Protection Division, in consultation with the state climatologist, determined that the drought is over. There are no further specific restrictions, and so we wanted to make that known to all of our citizens. And but it's important to remember that the habits that we have learned over the past couple of years in dealing with the drought need to be maintained. And I will show you a quick reminder about that in a minute, but just wanted to mention, though, as an ongoing provision of state regulations, drought or not, watering is limited to odd days and even days. And in case you are as confused as I am, I'll read it. Even and unnumbered addresses may water at any time on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Odd numbered addresses may water at any time on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. Nobody can water on Friday, so that's an opportunity for our police department to exercise their skills in dealing with that. But we want to remind people that it is wasteful and inefficient to water between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Studies have shown that in the southern climate that as much as 50% of the water that you put out is wasted to evaporation. So we would remind you of that. We will have some information, additional information on our website about important tips, particularly for people that have irrigation systems that have not been used maybe for a year or two. They should be fully inspected by a certified irrigation specialist before they use them. Rainwater is still a valuable source, whether it falls directly from the sky or you capture it in a rain barrel. And in case you are concerned about how to do that, the City of Roswell is sponsoring, and Keep Roswell Beautiful are sponsoring an event this Saturday, June 20th, in the City Hall parking lot, where you can buy a rain barrel for $49. They're about $120 value. They will also have available backyard compost bins for the same price. And that is, I've checked them out, that is an excellent bargain. We don't make anything on them. It's just a benefit. But those of our citizens who have been interested have been very pleased to be aware of that. I will point out the city will continue to have our conservation measures over this period through conservation measures and leak detection and meter improvements. The city has reduced lost water, lost consumption by 26%. So that is a substantial savings, and we will continue to work on that regard. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mooring. When you were talking about the restrictions, that's for the City of Roswell. What about us that are unfortunate to be on Fulton County water?
These are the state requirements. Last year the legislature passed a law that no local government or utility can have regulations more stringent than the state. So these are, in fact, universal, but the guidelines certainly would be community-wide in terms of not watering between 10 and 4 and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This is This cartoon was in the AJC last week after the announcement about the watering restrictions, and this could be how Lake Lanier might look if people don't recognize that we need to continue to have conservation. So Mr. Lukovich is his own man, and so you can take that or leave it as you choose. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Do we have a motion to approve the consent? Second by Councilman Orleans. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This brings us to the budget. Mr. Davidson, would you read the budget ordinance that was unanimously passed by council at the first reading? And this includes the amendments that the council added. So this is the budget as amended and unanimously passed by council at the last reading.
Thank you. This is an ordinance adopting a budget for the fiscal year 2010 for each fund of the City of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to Article 6, Chapter 6 of the Charter of the City, beginning July 1st, 2009, and ending June 30th, 2010, appropriating the amount shown in each budget as expenditures, adopting the item of anticipated funding sources, prohibiting expenditures to exceed appropriations, and prohibiting expenditures from exceeding actual funding sources, and amending the Code of Ordinances to effectuate such adoption. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City of Roswell, pursuant to their authority, do hereby adopt the following ordinance. The City of Roswell, Georgia, hereby adopts a budget for fiscal year 2010, said budget being described below and shown on Attachment A for each fund of the City of Roswell, Georgia. The General Fund, $63,609,685. Confiscated Asset Funds, $296,529. E911 Fund, $1,508,279. Soil and Erosion Fund, $100. Cemetery Care Fund, $23,500. Lita Thompson Fund, $62,500. Hotel Motel Fund, $525,509. Solid Waste Fund, $10,047,968. Water and Sewer Fund, $4,319,158. Recreation Participation Fund, $3,948,041. Group Benefits Fund, $7,638,000. Risk Liability Fund, $1,050,000. Workers' Compensation Fund, $1,273,050. Impact Fee Fund, $339,615. Capital Projects Fund, $7,741,183. And Debt Service Fund, $6,188,529, for a total expenditure budget of $108,571,646. A millage rate of 5.455 mils is hereby established as part of the approved budget based on the estimated digest of Fulton County. The millage rate has a component of 4.059 for the general fund and 1.396 component for the general obligation bond debt fund. This budget fixes the number of established full-time positions of the city at 618. This number may only be increased or decreased through approval of the mayor and city council. City administrator or his or her designee is authorized to create policies and procedures for the number, pay grade, classification, and or call center location to be changed throughout the year. Section 2.1.4 of the Code of Ordinances is amended by setting the compensation of the Chief Judge of the Municipal Court to $7,584.72 per month. Mayor and Council further also adopt a capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2010 through 2014 as attached hereto and incorporated herein as Schedule B. This plan does not indicate any promise of appropriations for future years. Mayor and Council further approve the reappropriation of all capital projects listed in Schedule C. This is a listing of currently appropriated capital projects which will be reappropriated as of July 1st, 2009 with passage of this ordinance. This budget also adopts a policy of keeping at minimum 25% of budgeted expenditures for the general fund within fund balance at the end of each fiscal year. This budget also adopts a policy of keeping at minimum 16.67% of budgeted expenditures for the solid waste fund within fund balance at the end of each fiscal year. This budget also adopts a policy of keeping at minimum 16.67% of budgeted expenditures for the water fund within fund balance at the end of each fiscal year. City administrator and his or her designee may promulgate all necessary internal rules, regulations, and policies to ensure that this budget ordinance is followed. And if approved, this will be the second reading of the ordinance.
Mr. Irwin, could you present to the audience and the council the details of this budget? Not all the details, but your summary of this budget.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Okay. As stated, this is a second reading of the 2010 proposed budget. As we take a look at the general fund revenues, you will notice a decrease of 6% from $67.7 million to $63.67 million. Our millage rate, as stated, is remaining the same at 5.455 mils. You see a small increase in property taxes. We estimated our property taxes at $400,000 less than last year, but with the end of the Homeowners Tax Relief Grant, funds that previously had shown up in intergovernmental have now been moved to the property tax. So we're not estimating to collect more property tax. We just moved it from the intergovernmental up to the property tax. Last year we received an estimated digest of $5,230,000,000 from the assessor's office. We realized that there would be value lost in the appeal process, so the digest we used as we built our digest last year was $5.08 million was the digest that was used to build our digest last year. The digest we're using this year is $4.86 billion that we're using to build our digest this year. Once again, we're just trying to take a very conservative look at our property tax information. But the total general fund budget, the revenue, has been reduced by about $4.1 million this year from the 09 approved to the 10 proposed number. Sales tax, we've decreased that amount as we've taken a look at what's currently happened. The one piece of good news I do have on sales tax is we have collected $300,000 more in sales tax this year than we have budgeted for next year. In fact, overall in the general fund revenue, we currently have collected $400,000 more in the general fund 2009 revenue than we have budgeted for 2010. And we still have at least one sales tax payment of somewhere between $1 million to $1.2 million that should be coming in. The next item we take a look at is the expenditures of the general fund. As you take a look at this, the total decrease was 4.9 or about 5%. There is one department that shows a small increase, and that's administration. The reason for that small increase is we have elections coming up this fall, and the budgeted amount for those is $310,000. Once you remove the elections from the administration's budget, its budget has decreased 2.9% from 09 approved to the 10 proposed number. The next slides will walk you through the changes from the 09 approved to the 2010 budget. The first one, these are the employee cuts, the personnel cuts that were made during the budget process, and it totaled $1.5 million. The budget eliminates 6 vacant full-time positions. 5 of them are located in ComDev, the administrative specialist, a building inspector, a land development inspector, a planner, and an arborist. All 5 of those were vacant full-time positions. We're also eliminating 1 in administration, the mailroom clerk. That position has moved from a full-time to a part-time position. We budgeted $515,000 this year in vacancy savings. We've tracked it in prior years, and we've averaged close to $1 million during normal times in vacancy savings. And in prior years, we budgeted between $200,000 and $300,000. This year, we took an aggressive approach on our vacancy savings. What this works out to be is the city in the general fund will need to hold about 9 to 10 positions vacant throughout the whole year. And based on historical patterns, 2 departments are picking up the lion's share of this. The police department is picking up $215,000 in vacancy savings that they'll be responsible for this year, and transportation is picking up $150,000. The next item is a reduction in city contribution to the group benefit fund. We're not looking at any reduction in the level of service that our employees receive and the level of benefit, but last year we budgeted $10,000 per employee. This year we've cut it back to $9,500. We've had a decrease in our risk and liability premium due to the new contract that we've entered. We made an adjustment to salaries. When we budget a vacant position, we budget it at market. And then once a position is filled in the next budget, we go back and take a look at it and make an adjustment either up or down depending on how that person was hired. But the city was able to identify $115,000 in cuts at that place. We reduced the deferred comp funding. Last year the council granted the employees 1% as a deferred comp match. We took a look at actual use and we were able to make a cut of $76,000. And then a temporary elimination of the holiday gift. Council has granted the employees a $100 gift at Christmas time, and so we're taking that off the table for now and removing that. So that works out to total employee cuts or salary cuts of $1.5 million. As we took a look at the operating, we cut $1.1 million out of the general fund's operating. The top number, the $570,000, these were departments going in and finding efficiencies and making changes from their 09 approved to their 10 proposed budget, and they were able to cut $570,000. Yes, ma'am? Okay. The next one was removing one-time new initiatives. When a new initiative is placed in the budget over the last couple of years, we'll pull it back out at the start. One of the large pieces of this $385,000 was the contract service for the stormwater, which was put back in. We eliminated operating and grant match contingencies of $75,000. In this next budget, we should have a total of about $250 in operating contingency, of which $25,000 is rolling over to the police department for gasoline. And then on grant match contingency, we're somewhere around $350,000 still available. Elimination of the additional tree funds at $60,000. But we do still have money in there for tree funds. We have about $14.5 in capital. We have about $145,000 that will roll over from this year into next year. And then also in the tree bank fund, we have about $62,000. And then finally, reduction in hospitality. Originally, there was $42,660 in the hospitality budget. That has been cut back to $10,000. The next slide that we'll take a look at are the additions that we added back. A lot of this is just the cost of doing business. The first one is the elections. It's been estimated to be $310,000. The next one is the stormwater, the $185,000 that we have put back in for their contract services. Gasoline increases at $70,000 plus the $25,000 we'll take from the operating contingency, so about $95,000. Aerial and street center lines. This will be in our community development department. They'll be flying new aerials and putting new center lines through the GIS process. And while this is happening in the community development department, it has received the support of both the fire and the police chief for the public safety benefit. Software maintenance contract increases. These are just increases for the contracts that we currently have in place. This is not new contracts. Things such as our financial management system when they go up on their maintenance cost. Police equipment. This includes equipment for the motorcycles. They currently operate one shift. This would provide equipment, no new people, and allow them to work a second shift also. Printers and then a server. And the server would be for the digital cameras that they're wanting to put in the cars through the capital project. Fleet database system, this is just an upgrade to the current system that's in place. Restore City Hall holiday lighting, and then also additional funding for the special events, which totals $807,000. So as we take a look at some of the changes that were made to the general fund from 2009 to the 10 proposed, we decreased personnel $1.5 million. We decreased operating $316,000. Original cut was $1.1 million and $800,000 added back. And then we decreased our capital expenditure number by $3 million this year. We decreased it from about 10.7 last year that was budgeted down to about the $7.5 million that's budgeted this year. In our maintenance capital, the budget proposes to spend $3.1 million. In administration, that would be for the facilities condition project, and we expect somewhere around $500,000 to roll over also from this year. Citywide, $1,393,000 is for new vehicles, with the majority of that being 21 police pursuit vehicles that could be purchased this year. $50,000 would be for the computer replacement process, with a potential of $70,000 to also roll over for this. Police Department, the $32,700. This would be the in-car video camera replacement. This would be the actual equipment, and the $2,100 mentioned in operating would have been the server. Rec and Parks, this budget proposes $611,000 in Rec and Park maintenance and equipment for our parkland and for our parks. Transportation, it's proposing $688,000. $350,000 of that is bridge maintenance. $200,000 is road safety. And this is on the maintenance capital side. Our next slide will talk about the one-time capital, or the capital investment that we'll make in the city. The administration is $500,000 for the ERP, for the Enterprise Resource Project, the software project that has been discussed. In Fire Department, there's a new fire engine for $437,000. Public Works has stormwater projects for $300,000. And then Transportation has approximately $3.2 million in projects, of which $1.7 is resurfacing and reconstruction, $890,000 for the Grimes Bridge Norcross Warsaw, the Holcomb Bridge Road Alpharetta Highway, $444,000, and then the Advanced Traffic Management System of $150,000. When you take a look at the way the city is proposing to use its general fund reserves, or the $16 million that we've talked about previously, that's over and above the 3-month reserve by policy, we're looking at using $5,581,000. $4,421,000 will be used for the one-time capital, for the capital investment that we're looking at, and then $1,159,550 would be used for maintenance capital, and for this year, with that going to help pay for the police vehicles. This next slide just gives you a summary of the changes in revenue and expenditures from the approved to the proposed. As you can see, the total decrease was about $4 million in revenue and $3.2 million in expenditures. And where that difference comes from, if you remember the 2009 approved budget, there was $890,000 of revenue over expenditures in the approved budget, and that equals out that process. Our next slide is the pro forma that we take a look at. And by taking the current CIP and taking a look at the proposal of using about $1 million a year for the maintenance capital, we have a budget that gets us through 2013 in good shape. In 2014, basing the estimates on 100% of revenues and 100% of expenditures, we will be below the reserve by policy by about $5 million. But then once at that point we pay off all our debt, the city pays off all its debt, and then that 1.396 is able to move over to the operating, which will give us a positive of about $5 million a year. But just as an example, We have always done our pro formas just as cautiously as we possibly can. By just making an adjustment to say 101% of your revenue, 99 to 98% of your expenditures, that number in 2014, instead of being a negative $5 million, is only a negative $200,000. So it's just a very small number at that point. And on average, we've averaged somewhere around 110% on our revenue and 95% on our expenditures over the last 4 years. This next slide just provides the millage rate comparison. As you can see, Roswell does have the lowest maintenance and operating millage rate of our neighbors, and these are all similar to last year. The people I talked with that have already presented their millage rate in the different cities, no one was making any changes on their millage rate. They were all remaining the same. Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back to you, sir.
I've got one other sheet I want you to go over to, and I'd ask Mike Irwin to do a comparison of 1998, where the city was in costs, and the size of the city and where they are today, to put the council in perspective, the efficiency of this city government. And if you can just hit those highlighted ones in yellow, I think that makes the point.
All right, just real quick, our population has gone from 57,000 to 101,000. Information came from the U.S. Census Bureau. Our square miles has increased from 33.1 to 42 miles, or about a 27% increase. The fair market value, or if you take the digest, do the fair market value and look at the city of Roswell, it's increased to 183% from 1998 to the 2010 timeframe, from $4.4 billion to over $12 billion. All funds position per capita has decreased about 25% during this same time, from 81 to about 60. The general fund approved budget per capita, adjusted for CPI, over this time frame has decreased about 5%. And then the millage rate has decreased from 6.59 to 5.455.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Does the council have any questions at this time? Councilman Eichelhart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got two questions for you. One is related to, and I guess somewhat it's crystal ball, but it's also, I know, a large issue of discussion between city, state, county, and others on what we project the potential in the next year of not actually experiencing the revenues that we hope to. And where does that stand, and what you're aware of at this point of what some of the fears are of what could happen in this next year? I've heard up to $1 million that we may not see ultimately. But what can you tell us on that?
As mentioned earlier, this afternoon I pulled from our finance system the amount of revenue the general fund has collected as of today. And as of today, we are $400,000. We've collected $400,000 more than we're projecting in the 10 budget to collect. And we also will have another sales tax payment come in, which will probably be about $1.2 million, plus just the normal revenues that come in at the end of the year.
Right. I understand that, but I guess I was talking more about the potential of having a number of the appeals that are going through, higher returns on that, or less than expected returns, I guess the other way to put that. Continued reductions in values based on foreclosures and other things like that. There's been a great deal of discussion. I understand even from some of the county folks that we may see reductions as we go forward throughout the next fiscal year.
Mrs. Love, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, sir. In our conversations with the chief tax appraiser, he did tell us early on to expect no growth and then possibly a slight reduction. So all of that has already been factored into these budget numbers, and then some based on collection rates. We still do have a number of parcels in excess of 1,000 that are outstanding, but the amount that typically they are being resolved at is within the budget numbers that we have budgeted. So we are comfortable with what we know at this point. We do not have a large commercial base here in Roswell, and that is the majority of those properties that were impacted for other jurisdictions who have a larger percentage of their total tax base as commercial. And we will be watching it. We actually are now getting weekly updates of the information of the ones that have been resolved.
Okay, thank you. And second question is on the next to last, or whichever one it was there, the pro forma of using a $1 million maintenance capital budget continuing forward, which I understand where that comes from. But in looking at the proposed CIP that deals with the maintenance capital, we're in between $3 and $6 million each year. So I'm not sure how realistic that is. And I understand where this number comes from. I'm not saying it's bad, but I am, on your part, I'm just saying that it doesn't match up with the real numbers that we're looking at, and even this year we had to increase that to try and make that. So I'm not sure that this chart really works in reality.
When we took a look at this, the CIP that shows the $5 to $6 million at different times in maintenance capital, those are our needs, plain and simple, just as you have needs at your house. But the $3 million is where we take a look at what we can reasonably fund, but also what we reasonably can accomplish. When we've taken a look at historical spending for maintenance capital, it tends to stay somewhere around $2 million a year. So we felt like that $3 million would be pushing us on the maintenance capital. But the 5 and 6 is we did want to show these are the big projects that we have coming. And two of the largest ones in the maintenance capital is the facilities condition, which will throw out some of the large numbers, and the vehicles, which will also throw out some of the large numbers. And those would be things where on a year-by-year basis we would take a look at and say, what do we need to fund this year, and what are we able to fund this year?
And I understand that, but again, this year we've seen that number is over $3 million, and you just said the continuing number has been about $2 million. So even if we use between $2 and $3 million, that's still far over $1 million. So that's just my point, that I'm not sure. I'm not saying anything's wrong with the numbers you put together, but just I'm not sure those add up.
What is the dollar amount of maintenance to capital programmed into the pro forma each year?
$3 million.
$3 million.
Oh, the number, I heard you say $1 million. Did you?
He was talking about the additional million.
Yes.
At the beginning, we had $2 million in maintenance capital, and then through this process, the council has added another $1 million.
Okay. So
Mike did say $1 million, but he was referring to the additional $1 million. There is $3 million in maintenance capital in that pro forma.
All right. Well, then I feel better about that.
I apologize for not being clear.
Now I understand. I knew I heard him say $1 million. But as we've seen, and I understand, I don't totally disagree that we can only spend so much each year, but those are the needs that we've identified, and we'll see as that goes over time as to whether that's enough or not. But I'm concerned it may or may not be. But also, this doesn't really include much on the capital side outside of the maintenance capital in terms of one time. We've shown what it is, as I understand the numbers of going ahead and spending that full $16 million over the next few years. But we also know that doesn't really meet the needs that we have as well. So that's my only point on that. Thanks.
At this time, we'll entertain any amendments to the budget. I'd like to start with, does any council members wish to add anything to the budget? Councilman Eichelhart, would you like to add anything to the budget?
Well, thank you, Mayor. I guess I had a question on procedure as last time, and it was actually brought up last week that we can't make an amendment until we have a motion. So how do we do that this week?
Mr. Davidson, can we discuss amendments before we have a motion to approve the budget?
You can have amendments to the document. You wouldn't have an amendment to a motion. So technically, you would have to vote on any amendment, but it would, basically it would probably be better to have a motion to approve and then make amendments and see if you get the votes for the
Mr. Eichelhart, if you would like to for me to entertain a motion to approve the budget, then I will ask, is there a motion to approve the budget?
Well, for the purposes of meeting our legal requirements of having a budget passed and to begin the process of amendments, I will make a motion to approve the 2010 budget.
We have a motion to approve the 2010 budget by Councilman Eichelhart. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Wynn. All right, at this time we'll entertain anyone. Does any council member wish to add any items to this budget? And what I'd like to do is get a list of the adds, a list of the cuts, hear from the public on the budget in general, on the adds and cuts, and then come back to council for votes on those adds and cuts. So at this time, does any council member wish to add anything to the budget? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There has been some discussion between the police chief and some of the residents of Martin's Landing about crossing guards, and I think the decision was made that we need to have 3 crossing guards. at the local elementary school. I was wondering, is that a budget? Is that something we need to add to the budget, or is that handled
No, sir.
outside of this?
The funding in the budget is adequate to provide those crossing guards.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to discuss any additions to the budget? All right, this time we'll entertain any recommendations for cuts to the budget. Anyone wish to? Councilman Eichelhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Got a few. We'll just go down the list, and many of these come from the document that we discussed at one point in a work session of about $270,000 that could potentially be reduced further as some discussions were held with staff. First one being $72,500 for the community development aspects of both the aerials and street center lines pictures to be taken this year, as well as the professional services reduction that was discussed. Those two together total $72,500. Do you want me to go through the whole list?
Yes,
or?
sir.
Okay.
I want to get all of them on the table,
Right.
hear from the public, hear from the council, and then we'll vote on them.
All right. And on that one, I think we'll need that at some point. I'm not sure how much growth we've had recently to justify that right now. Next one is reduce $80,000 from travel and training, which still leaves $240,000. That all the things that need to be done to retain certifications and things like that, but a number of things to reduce. And I don't have the exact list of what those are for. I'm taking the numbers that we were given previously. The next one is a reduction of $28,000 from overtime. Again, I'm following what was on that list. I don't have the exact elements of that. Next is $10,000 from legal expenses. So we will have to behave this year and make sure that we don't get any lawsuits. Next one is a tough one, but it is something I think we don't want to defer forever, but in this year where we're tight would be $30,500 for new police motorcycles. I have no problem with that longer term, but in a tight year, if we're not adding people on the street, it would be nice to have, but in a tight year, I think it's something we can postpone. The City Hall security lighting, which is a capital item of $80,000. We may or may not need the entire list of this. We may need some things, but $80,000 again in this year I think is extreme. Mr. Owens won't like this one, but City Hall Christmas lights for $11,475. That's not including, or does not involve the lights at the square or the triangle. It would only be the ones here at City Hall where only those that come at night for meetings would see. Another one that's a little tough to do, but I don't think it's necessary this year, is the Welcome Center drive-through renovation, which is $10,000. And then the big one is, again, one that I certainly would prefer not to do, but in a year that we're already at least $800,000 in the hole, and I think we may see that reduce or go further, is the closing of all city operations for one day a month, which I would suggest be the last Friday of any month. And that would be except for what I'm calling essential services. So on the street police and their support personnel, so not the upper level training administrators, all those type of things. Same thing for on the ground fire and personnel and their support. Basically, on both of those, I think, would be who you'd see on operations at night or weekends. Sanitation pickup, obviously we still need that. And then during the summer months, the rec and park programs, which would just be July, May, and June, since we'll have all the kids around. Programs that pay a fee for participation, because they are paying for that, so we don't want to take that away from them. And then revenue generating activities, which would be at least the 3 houses and the Welcome Center. And in what it was given, and this is very much an estimate, I didn't ask for exact because I don't think it'll pass, so didn't go through the great detail, but the estimate is about $880,000 for that for an annual basis. And those are a set of cuts. I have 2 others that aren't really cuts or additions. It's the clarifying the line item name to hopefully help in the future, but I can hold that for later.
Thank you, Councilman Eichelhardt. Any other council members wish to propose any other amendments to this budget? Anyone else wish to propose any other amendments to this budget? Does anyone in the audience have any questions about the budget or the amendments? If you do, please come forward, give us your name and address, and we'll try to answer your questions and respond to your comments.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if it's out of order. I apologize. I missed one on my list. I actually have one more.
Please proceed with the...
Figured you wanted it now. I just realized I overlooked it. But this is another one that I'd, again, prefer not to do, but in a tough year, and it's a program that's brand new, is the entire employee match that was enacted last year, which is $160,000. It's still something that people can put into. You just would not have the 1% match during this next fiscal year. So that's $160,000.
Thank you, Councilman Eigelhart. We're back to our audience. Anyone wish to come forward, give us your name and address, and we'll be glad to hear from you.
Lee Fleck, Martin's Landing. If I need this focused in, can somebody focus this in for me, please? Because it always needs to be adjusted. Close. Oh, go the other way. Go the other way. That's good. That's good enough. That's the figure I want to say. First of all, with regard to your population figures that you presented so nicely over the last 12 years, I want to remind the council where those numbers, those big jumps came from 57,000 to 75,000. That was the acquisition of Horseshoe Bend. Okay, and that's where the population increased. Okay, with a higher density or lower density population areas. Okay, and City of Roswell, these figures come from the Chief of Police's crime stats. We are not 101,000 population, according to Chief Williams. We are, as you can see, in the high 80s. Okay? So I just wanted to present that. Okay, what concerns me is when I'm looking at the public safety, the primary responsibility of this council is public safety, and I see the police department cutting $330,000 out of their budget. I have some questions, which I will get to in the end result. I just want to present these figures. Last year, this is the detention center. Last year, you voted 3 additional detention officers. Okay? What it appears to me is this year, you're losing 2, $76,000. That's in salaries. I need these numbers explained to me. Okay? Because I don't understand how you can vote 2 in last year and then it looks like you're cutting back, or 3 in last year and you're cutting back 2. Again, with the police patrol.
I don't want to interrupt, but as you have questions, perhaps we could have a response to each question so we don't lose track of them.
Why can't I go through the whole police department? Because these are going somewhere.
Well,
okay?
I'm not sure how long the list is, and if it's lengthy, we may forget one. I just want to make sure we responded to all of them. So my preference would be, as you raise a question, let's answer the question. So, Chief Williams, if you could answer that first question. Mr. Chief Williams, you need to come forward, and given that it's your department, you might want to stand up there because you may be called upon again if there's another question.
We have no plans to cut detention officers. I think this is probably coming from salary savings and not the actual reduction of personnel.
Pardon? Did you say something? Okay, here we got patrol section. Looks to me like we're losing possibly 1 patrol officer. You added 6, I believe, last year. Was it? You asked for 12 and got 6 or something like that. And That looks to me like you're losing one there, too.
Chief Williams, if you could respond to that point.
Yes, that would be the same thing as salary savings is what we're talking about, not the loss of an authorized position.
Traffic enforcement. It's hard to see that figure, but the bottom line, 122,000, is showing 60,000. Traffic enforcement. Where's that savings from? That's hard to see, but you can look at it over here if you need to. You should know your own figure. 61,000 in regular employees, 16,000 in part-time employees, 20,000 in overtime.
That would be in salary savings. All of these salaries are those numbers are put together by the budget office and based upon the historic vacancy rate that every department, including the police department, has. And I have sparred with budget quite often over these numbers, and have found that they are quite right usually.
Okay, then I see an increase in your detectives. Is that a salary adjustment also?
No, sir. What we do is we move personnel occasionally within the cost center, and we're breaking into cost centers now, so personnel can shift from one cost center to another, and I need to pay them out of the cost center that they are currently in. There are no additions and no deductions from the personnel.
Okay. This is the other. I assume this is CSI. Looks like an additional $47,000 there.
There are no new personnel budgeted this year, nor are there any personnel reductions this year. Full-time personnel reductions this year.
Okay, now we're to the meat, the crux of the matter. Okay? I would like somebody to explain to me the $83,000 in salary-related adjustments. If there's no cuts, no additions, no reductions, why do we need $83,000 for salary adjustments?
Each year, as I mentioned earlier, there was a total change of about $115,000 in the general fund. We take a look at the current salaries and compare them to the market that we looked at when they were vacant. So with the police department, there was an increase of $82,000. They have 190 employees. One other thing that we do, just to be cautious, is there's not exactly 2,080 hours in a year. There's a little bit more. So as we're budgeting our salaries, we budget 2088, or an additional 8 hours, just to be cautious in the way that we budget. So between the changes in the salaries, that's why there's an increase of $82,000. As the chief has said earlier, there was no change in the personnel of the police department this year.
I thought I read in the paper and everything there was no salary increases. So I'm flabbergasted by this. If there's no changes in manning, no promotions, etc., I think that's a suspect figure. I'll be the last one to want the police department to cut its salary. But those numbers just don't make any sense to me. And I hope you all look into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fleck. Does anyone else have any questions or comments about the budget? This is your opportunity. Seeing no hands up, we'll return to council. What I will ask council to do will be voting on each item that Councilman Eichelhardt has proposed. But first, I would ask, is there any general discussion before we vote on the individual items? Anybody want to make any general comments? Seeing no hands up, Mr. Eichelhardt, the first item would be the $72,500 for the aerial photos. If you'd make that motion.
All right. I make the motion to reduce the budget by $72,500 for the elimination of the aerials and street center lines and professional services under community development.
Motion by Councilman Eichelhardt. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Further discussion. Councilman David Tollison.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to hear from the city administrator the impact as we go along of all of these so that we can judge each area a little better.
Yes, sir. The $72,500 is made up of $17,500 in professional services. Those are things that we might use during the year for an outside consultant or expert. An example would be a charrette where we didn't have volunteer services or something. Staff went back and took a look at that. If we did need those, it would mean that we would just come back to the council during the year if the council had a directive or a particular project they would like for us to entertain. The $55,000 for the aerials in the center line, we try to be on at least a 3-year program of getting new aerials, and the center line data is certainly important from a public safety standpoint. At the staff level, we did discuss it. We do need it either this year or next year, and we had discussed, obviously, if it's not provided this year, then we would be requesting it in the 2011 budget.
Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That's Councilmember Wynn. This is the motion to cut this. Councilmember Wynn, Councilmember DiPolito, Councilmember Laurie Henry. That's unanimous. Passes.
All right, so next item is the move to reduce $80,000 from travel and training, which is just across the board.
Caleb, I think Mr. Dave, the standing question is how would that impact the city?
Yes, sir. As Councilman Eigelhart mentioned, this does not eliminate any required training for anyone for a certification or a particular job requirement across the board for the city as a whole. What cutting this $80,000 does eliminates professional development at the middle manager and the management team, department directors. Professional development for the year. So we would not attend any conferences, seminars. We would utilize any free seminars or training or webinars or something that would be provided to us at a low or no cost that could be absorbed.
We have a motion is that a motion by Councilman Eigelhart? Yes, sir. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Laurie Henry. Further discussion. Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm having a bit of a trouble cutting this one. A wise person once told me that employees are like assets and they're like infrastructure. If you don't keep them up, if you don't keep them up to date, you lose it. In the long run, we will lose it. And our middle management, upper management need to have the interaction with their peers all over the country. This is how we get our innovative ideas. This is how our staff starts thinking outside of the box because they are with their peers. They're being able to throw around ideas, have round tables. And I just cannot see how cutting $80,000 out of our budget is going to help our city employees. $80,000.
Was it 80,000?
$80,000. I cannot go along with this. I think this is a very vital and crucial point of the budget that we really need to look at long and hard because I just cannot see doing this and having our middle management, upper management personnel not being able to interact with their peers.
Further discussion or questions? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That's Councilmember Eigelhart, DiPolito, and Henry in favor. All opposed? That's Councilman Orleans, Tollison, and Wynn opposed. I cast my vote with those opposed. Fails to pass. The next motion, Councilman Eigelhart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next item is for $28,000 in overtime, again across the board.
The impact of this alone would be that we basically have zero flexibility in the budget regarding overtime. We do a number of special events where things come up, if a storm, natural disaster. So certainly we can take a look at it mid-year. The council would have to understand that we may be coming back at some point to request additional overtime. There would be another impact that I will reserve till the discussion and the vote on the furlough.
I understand you want to reserve that. It is important for the council to hear what you're reserved because they'll be taking a vote at this time. Or do you want to? Would you like to have these two considered at one time? Because I want all the information. The council have all the information.
I don't think they have all the information. I didn't know if we were doing it one at a time, but it probably would be more helpful for us to move this overtime item and the furlough together so that they can consider it as more of a package.
Unless the council objects, I'm going to hold the vote on that and further discussion on that until we discuss the furlough package. So the next item was the $10,000 in legal. Do we have a motion on that, Councilman Eichelhart?
Yes, sir. Move to remove $10,000 from legal expenses.
Motion by Councilman Eichelhart. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman DiPolito. Further discussion of that item. Mrs.
Yes, sir.
Love.
Since everyone has promised to behave here at the dais, we certainly feel from a staff perspective that this would not be necessary. The city attorney has reviewed it, and we're very comfortable that this amount could be eliminated and have no impact, a negative.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
I was just going to make one comment on that we do have to behave then.
All right, next item is motion to remove $30,500 for new police motorcycles.
Motion by Councilman Eichelhart. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Henry. Mrs. Love, would you comment on that one?
Yes, sir. The impact, I believe it's been stated before, would be to equip and outfit police officers to have a motorcycle shift, another shift. Now we have one. It is not new motorcycles, and the chief is comfortable that this is not a must-have. It's something that certainly enhances it, but is not something that he must have this year.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Councilman Eichelhart, your next motion.
Do you want to go to the furlough one or save that for last?
I thought we'd save that for last. Okay. The next one's your security lighting.
Yeah, right. The next one would be to remove $80,000 for City Hall security lighting.
Mrs. Love, would you comment on that?
You don't have a second.
Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Henry.
This item was put in the budget as a result of Southern Company doing a security review for the city about 3 years ago. There is inadequate lighting in our parking lot of City Hall. The idea for this number, and the number does need to be refreshed because it's several years old, would be the canopy of the trees. Our lights are now up in the canopy, so we're basically lighting the tree canopy, and there's some dark areas. The idea would be to move some of the poles to the lower levels tiers that are not currently lighted adequately, to purchase new poles and fixtures, and to have more appropriate spacing because of the canopy tree, as the City Hall has been here 15 plus years. So it is something that we have not had any complaints, we have not had any incidents. It's not reactive, it's being proactive to have adequate lighting around the City Hall campus. It is certainly something that we can wait on. We requested it because a need was identified, but like many other things, it is something that we can defer to a future year.
We have a motion and second. Further discussion. Councilman Orleans.
Okay, we've talked about this before, but just to refresh everybody's mind, isn't there some areas that we can trim up some of the trees and get better lighting, or has that already been done?
We have done that, yes, sir.
Done that.
We did that in the previous fiscal year.
I know we've talked about that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Next item is motion is to eliminate the City Hall Christmas lights just for this coming year, $11,475.
Motion by Councilman Eichelhart, second by Lori Henry. Further discussion.
The impact will be we would not have City Hall Christmas lighting around the campus. It would simply be the large wreath that hangs on our front porch.
Councilman Orleans.
As I mentioned before, and this is a holiday that we all like to enjoy. We like to have the City Hall lit up, where Parks and Rec is looking and was planning on having a program to incorporate that here at City Hall in addition to the lighting of the trees down at the square. So at this point, I'd like to keep it in, and Parks and Rec wanted to keep it in, and I've heard from different citizens that like to keep it in as well.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That's Councilmember Eichelhart, Dippolito, and Henry in favor of the motion. All opposed? Councilmember Wynn, Councilmember Orleans, Councilmember David Tollison opposed to the motion. I will side with those in favor of the motion. Motion passes 3-4. Next item, please.
Next item is to eliminate $10,000 for the Welcome Center drive-through, which again I think is a fine project, but it can wait. It's waited for a while, like 30 years.
We have a motion to approve the drive-through one at the Welcome Center to eliminate that $10,000 by Councilman Eichelhart. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Wynn. Any further discussion or questions? Council, well, we'll hear from K-Love. I apologize.
This item was brought during the middle of the fiscal year, and it was decided at the committee level to include it in consideration for the budget process. It has been like that since the building was built, so there is no negative impact. Some may feel that it has an aesthetic impact, but it is not a functional delivery of service impact.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Then the next to last, again, that
the employee match would be the last one before we cover the furlough.
Right, and I think that's what's up now. And again, it's not something I'd like to do, but we are finding ourselves in a hole of about $800,000 that we're pulling from savings. So as much as I don't like to do it, we have to make some tough decisions. So make the motion to delete $160,000 for that match for just this upcoming fiscal year.
Motion by Councilman Eichelhart to eliminate the $160,000 employee match. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Lori Henry. Further discussion?
This program was started last year, the 1% match. We do have about a 50% participation rate. The point was made that it certainly doesn't preclude an employee from participating. There would be no match, so it would be a reduction in that benefit. So the negative impact, in my professional opinion, would be that people may not choose to participate in the future. It is not a required benefit, but it is certainly a nice benefit to extend to our employees.
Further discussion? Councilmember Lori Henry.
Ms. Love, could you please point out to us, as a reminder of our fully funded city pension plan that all of our employees have, that is intact, well-funded, and will continue to be so?
Yes, ma'am. We have a defined benefit plan that is non-contributory on the employee's part. The city pays the full benefit. It is an annuity type plan, and it is funded at the legal requirement.
I would ask the council to oppose this motion. This year we're asking our staff to do more with less. We've cut positions. We've not given them a raise. We're asking them to work harder. And now we're asking them to cut a benefit that we gave them last year, and I would ask the council to vote against this. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That's Councilman Eichelhart and Councilman Lori Henry in favor. All opposed? Councilmember Dippolito, Wynn, Tollison, and Orleans opposed. That does not pass. And so, Mr. Eichelhart, if we'll return to, I believe you had a motion to. Let's start over again.
You want to combine this too?
Just to get until we get the record straight. If you'll make your motion again, and if you'll make your motion on both items, and then we can discuss both at one time.
All right. I would make a motion that we close city operations, excluding those that I've listed before, which I can be happy to do again if necessary, and reduce overtime. The specific amount for overtime is $28,000. The approximate amount for city operations is $880,000.
And do we have a second on that motion? We'll consider these. Do you want to consider these as one item or two items?
Whatever works.
Is your motion? It is your motion.
We can put them together if that's
All
what
right.
we think needs to be.
We'll combine these as one motion. That's a motion to approve overtime and the 1 day a month furlough except for certain positions. That's a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Mrs. Love, if you would comment on those.
Yes, sir. This is probably the most difficult one to talk kind of on the fly about because we haven't vetted out, or certainly the council hasn't vetted out all the details. But first and foremost, we do not have a policy in place, so we would need to develop a policy regarding this furlough or reduced hours, and depending on the way that you wanted it to work, there are some Fair Labor Standard Act considerations, in addition to certainly general employee morale. There are some FLSA requirements that exempt employees cannot be furloughed for anything less than a week. So in order to do that, and what other cities have done who have been in this situation, they have made exempt employees non-exempt, which means they basically revert to hourly, and any hours they work above 40 hours should there need to be, then overtime would have to be paid, or if someone is furloughed and there's a need for something and someone comes in, then they would have to be paid. So that was my reference to the possible requirement
Question
of
about
overtime.
that. Do you convert them just for the furlough or you convert them year round?
No, sir, just for the furlough, which means they
Just
fill
for the
out an
week.
hourly time sheet. The other thing about a furlough, unlike if someone's on sick leave or PTO or on the weekend, is that during a furlough, they can't do city work. They can't be contacted, answer emails. So we would have to be quite careful about, one, selecting a certain group over another group that may be protected. That could be a form of discrimination. We would need to be quite careful about that, as well as making sure we have adequate supervisory staff to supervise anybody that would be non-exempt. There are a lot of other things we could get into some great detail about, but bottom line, we need to develop a policy, is what all that means in a nutshell.
How would this affect the operations on the days in which we furloughed these people?
From a customer service standpoint, certainly we would have to communicate to the citizens. People come to City Hall to do business, so if it's 1 day a month, whatever day the council chose for that to be, it would be important for us to get that information out to the citizens so they would know what their alternatives are, possibly doing something online or one of the other departments that's open. We would have to have some support services in place, for example, information technology or certain HR needs. We would have to provide for those. So Councilman Eichelhardt alluded to that number was a very general ballpark number and would have to be perfected, and that number could change substantially depending on the policy that you put in place, and we could then determine what the specific ramifications are. But there are a lot of legal and administrative requirements to be considered.
So the number could be substantially less, it could be substantially more, depending on the specifics of what the council decided.
Correct. I don't think that it would be substantially more depending on if it was 1 day, that would be 12 hours, 12 days in a year, but it certainly could be less depending on what levels of employees we need to have in place to deliver the appropriate levels of service. So I don't think you can just say across the board that all of the people who aren't delivering core services would be able to be furloughed. We would need to look in at that, and I have not had an opportunity to do that nor to talk to staff about it.
Does the council have any questions for Mrs. Love? Further discussion by council? Councilman Eichelhardt.
Just to say this is not a motion I take lightly, and again would prefer not to make. But given the fact that we, are at least 800,000 1 hour down to 640 in the hole, there are some tough decisions that we have to make, and this does hopefully spread some of the difficulty across the board to the extent possible. And again, it's not something I make joyfully, but something that I think we do need to look to and try and figure out some ways to deal with this.
Motion by Councilman Eichelhardt. I believe there was a second. Any further discussion? Councilman DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My seconding of this motion does not in any way imply that the level of service provided by the city employees is inappropriate or not of the highest caliber. I think they all work extremely hard. and deserve to get paid well and deserve to be treated well. It's unfortunate that we're in this position. We're down to a point where we're cutting $11,000 in Christmas lights, and we're shaving off every nickel we can. But unfortunately, we're at a position where our expenditures are exceeding our revenues, and by expenditures I mean our operating and our maintenance expenditures. And that's just a position that I cannot support. It's not something that I would support as a business person, and it's certainly not something that I can recommend as a councilman. So this is, as Councilman Eichelhart said, this is not a decision that's made lightly. It's actually a very difficult one, probably the hardest certainly the hardest of the list that we've talked about tonight, and certainly something we do not do with any sort of brief thinking. Certainly it's something that has really taken a lot of consideration on our part.
Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a very difficult time of even considering this. We have met 10 times through work sessions and through sitting up here. We have met 6 times, not as a quorum, but with the staff to talk about this. So I'm very disappointed that I was not contacted, I don't know about my other colleagues, about even discussing this prior to tonight. I think I was berated a couple of weeks ago for blindsiding this council on one transportation project. Well, I feel like I'm being blindsided on this. There was no discussion, and how I'm hearing it from Ms. Love, because she doesn't know if this is going to be a savings of $880,000 or 1.2 or 1.6 or 500,000. So it sounds like to me that this wasn't even worked out to give this council the exact amount of money that this was going to save. And another thing that really disturbs me a lot is that this could hurt the services that we provide our citizens. And hurting our services also hurts our quality of life in the city of Roswell. I mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again, and no, this is not a grandstanding that I am doing. There's $148,000 sitting up here right now of our budgets, of our salaries. Not one person has said, when are we going to cut our salaries to help? We're asking, we're putting everything on the employees. We're taking away the $160,000 deferred comp plan. We're asking now to furlough. We have not given raises. We've taken away the Christmas bonuses, but we have not looked within here. We are sitting up here, 7 people sitting up here. This is supposed to be a public service. We are public servants, and we have not even discussed how we're going to cut our salaries 1 red cent. I cannot support this. I am not putting this on the backs of this type of cut on the backs of the employees that work so hard and have given their all for the city.
Any further discussion? Councilman Orleans.
I mean, this has not been discussed by the whole council. We've discussed most of these other points, I think, over time. We've had many work sessions. We've had budget sessions. We've had discussions with staff. And this does come off seeming somewhat arbitrary. I mean, we pick one day a month. Maybe we should do 2 days a month. You know, we don't know what this will result in from a service standpoint or what unintended consequences that will come from it, similar to the points that Kay was trying to point out tonight. And this goes back to one of our work sessions where we brought up the concept of what levels of service do we want to provide, do we want to change our mission statement, and so forth. And I believe, or I thought, that the council came to an agreement that we wouldn't go there. There was multiple different ways to cut expenses based on determining those service levels. So I think we had made the decision in a direction not to go in that way. And it's unfortunate it was not discussed with the council, but from what I understand, it was in a newspaper at some point in time. I didn't see the newspaper, but that's what I've been told. And it comes down to a question of, I guess, trusting staff to make decisions and help us with this budget as well. So maybe we should look more closely, each one of us in our departments over the next year, at the total amount of employees and what is is definitely needed. If we feel that we can make some cuts, do it intelligently, do it knowledgeably, instead of just kind of an arbitrary cut across the board. We can reconsider this when we have a final digest. I just think it's not appropriate tonight. We've already worked to cut $4.9 million out of the budget. I'm comfortable with it, so I will not support this additional amendment.
Councilman Tollison.
I have not received any communication on this either, and it's a big item to take on. These others we've discussed. When we talked about stormwater utility and looked for alternatives, I met with Stu and Kay. We talked about the options. We worked through it. I brought that to a work session. We informed all of our colleagues, worked through it, had commentary, and took care of it. This is coming up at the last day, a bit of a surprise. So I'm very concerned about that. But then there's the additional aspect that in addition to our 3 months of reserve by policy, we have multiple millions of dollars of the taxpayers' money in reserve saved for a rainy day. We are in a major economic turndown, and we have already cut over $5 million year to year, I believe. We're cutting positions, and I really wonder if, under these circumstances, we will not access those funds. When will we, and what are we keeping them for? It belongs to the taxpayers, and if we're going to cut employee hours and thereby cutting service levels, but we're not cutting the tax rate, I kind of wonder where we're going with that. So I will not support this.
Councilmember Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to point out a couple of things. It was my understanding in the work sessions that a cut like this was not even open for debate, so it was not going to be considered. So this was the only avenue to consider a cut like this. But also I would like to say this, that unfortunately furloughs and salary reductions are a way of life. Furloughs have been going on through our community for the last year at a minimum. Salary reductions as well. I know of a number of people that are salaried employees that have had to take 20% reductions in their pay. It's unfortunate. I don't want to see it. I haven't enjoyed it in my home. But what if we don't consider this type of thing, and Councilman Tollison is talking about this rainy day fund, we've spent that rainy day fund time and time and time and time again. And intersection improvements, road improvements, those are all quality of life issues as well. So as the citizens of Roswell continue to drive through these intersections that they're concerned about their safety in, and deal with them, get rear-ended in certain places where there are things that we could be fixing with that rainy day fund, we need to do that as well, because that is a quality of life issue also. So, you know, I don't take any of this lightly, but I would like to reiterate that we are in very difficult economic times, and I think all things should be considered and on the table. And we are not asking our employees to do anything that the private sector isn't dealing with on a regular basis right now. So I will support the motion.
Any further comment? Councilmember Henry, I apologize if you didn't understand the words. If you have any other comments or other suggestions throughout the process, let us know. If you didn't understand those words, I apologize, but I tried to get full input from this council at all times. Councilman Eichelhart, if you'd like to comment.
Thank you. Again, I don't want to do anything that impacts employees, and all the employees over here, you know, I'm sorry, that's something that I think we have to consider. But the hard truth is that out of our entire budget, that's where most of our money is spent. And I don't think we should go about firing people. I don't believe we've done that. The positions that have been cut were already vacant. But we really have refused to consider things that spread the pain across the board, and this is something that does that. And I've lost count of how many Roswell residents I've talked to that have either reduced their income from earlier this year already, or know that they will through either furloughs, pay cuts, or layoffs. And we're not immune to what's happening, but we're going to use their tax dollars to maintain the status quo no matter what. And we learned early on that if we did bring up things that would even have some idea of having any large impact, that we'd be attacked, that we wanted to slash employees and services to citizens, that anything we did was going to ruin the whole city. So we never had a real discussion of a wide range of options that should at least be considered. And we're only told that we either had to do very little or we had to cut to the bone, and there's very little that could actually trim here and there. So frankly, that's why some of this wasn't brought up. But it was, granted, everybody didn't read the Beacon, but it was there over a week ago. And, frankly, the last meeting we had to really discuss this, I did bring some things forward to some folks, and, we got blindsided on some things related to that. So, unfortunately, I felt this was the one way to move forward with it. But throughout this process, we've learned that, it doesn't always work as cooperatively as we hoped that it would. And again, I hate having to bring this forward, and the number did correlate to the number that we were in the hole. That's why I came up with that, trying to look for that. And so again, it's not something that I take lightly or desire to do. And if any council member up here wants to put their salary back into the pot, I encourage them to do so.
Councilmember Eichelhart, I again would apologize also to you if you didn't understand the budget process. I tried to make the process open. I tried to consider all comments from council, and I'm sorry that the council members felt intimidated if that's what they felt and then wished to withhold their comments until tonight. That was certainly not my intent. I don't think that was the intent of staff or any council members. But we're glad you brought those comments forward today. They are on the table and they're being considered, and we think it's appropriate to consider those. When we brought this budget in, I said I wasn't going to support any layoffs or furloughs. This is a furlough. It's a one-day-a-month furlough. I will not support it. I'm also surprised that the council is discussing furloughing employees, and there has been no question of furloughing council members. If we're going to discuss furloughs, we should discuss it across the board, part-time and full-time, and part-time sitting up here. People should be furloughed if they're going to consider that. So I cannot support furloughs. I've never supported furloughs in this budget. I think we've got the hardest working employees in the state of Georgia. I think they give us the highest level services in the state of Georgia, and we get more than our money's worth, and I will not support cutting their wages through a furlough through the back door. Regarding the rainy day fund, there was a comment made that we spent that again and again. Mrs. Love, how much money do we have total in the rainy day fund, counting reserves and reserved by policy in the surplus?
About $29 million.
I would disagree with the comment. We've spent that again and again. What will if this budget is approved, how much will the balance in the reserves be?
I have to get my glasses. $25 million, including the reserve by policy.
All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That's Councilmember Eichelhart, Dippolito, and Nguyen. All opposed, raise their hands. Councilmember Orleans.
Sir, that was Councilmember Henry.
Councilmember, I apologize. That's Councilmember Eichelhart, Dippolito, and Henry. All opposed to this motion. That's Councilmember Orleans, Councilmember Tollison, and Councilmember Nguyen. And I proudly and happily join that vote, and it's a 4-3 that fails to pass. So we're back to the motion to approve the budget with the amendments proposed. Councilman Eichelhart.
Orleans.
Councilman Orleans.
Orleans, thanks. I'm the one.
Well, where's your name tag?
The full beard. All right. Councilman Orleans.
Yeah, I agree. We need to get skin in the game. So I'd like to amend the budget to remove $74,000 from the mayor and council salaries and eliminate any payment to us for July through the end of December. My reasoning for that is because we will have a new council in January, so I don't want to go into what may or may not happen starting in January, but I'm making a motion to eliminate our salaries from July 1 through December 31st.
Councilman Orleans has a motion to eliminate salaries for the balance of the year. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Nguyen. Further discussion on that matter? Councilmember Henry.
Does that include benefits as well?
Talking salary.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Councilmember Eichelhardt.
Does that include trips to Savannah and other locations for even city business?
I understand it was a motion to eliminate the salary for the remainder of the year. That would not include anything else unless the council wishes to add those amendments to it. We have a motion to eliminate. Again, Mr. Orleans, repeat that motion. Just for the record, I think there were some questions about it.
Motion to cut $74,000 from the mayor and council salaries, which would equate to payment from July 1st through December 31st, the salaries.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Councilman Henry.
I'm sorry, but this just defies logic. You know, we were just defeated on furloughing or salary cuts, and then you turn around and propose a salary cut. So your proposal is the only people in the city of Roswell that are going to take a salary cut or a furlough or whatever the case may be is this council, that it's needed for us, but no other place in the city that we should not look at operational expenses for anyone in the city with the exception of us.
Further discussion. Councilman Orleans.
We're making decisions. We're looking at all these items. And as Councilman Eichelhardt said, we're down to cutting $11,000 for Christmas lights. So I think that we can put some skin in the game from ourselves and know that we're serious about it and forego our salaries for half a year. Yes.
Motion by Councilman Orleans with a second by Councilmember Wynn. Further discussion. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Councilman Orleans, Tollison, and Wynn, all opposed. Councilman Dippolito, Henry, and Eichelhardt opposed. I will support the opposition. Fails to pass 4-3. We're back to the motion to approve the budget with all the amendments which have passed. Mrs. Love, could you summarize? Could you hit all the amendments that have been passed?
Yes, sir. And budget staff correct me.
And if you would add up and then tell us what the total change is in the budget with all those amendments.
And budget staff, if you'll tell you that. The first one is a reduction of $72,500 in community development for professional services and aerial photography and centerline data. The next one is $10,000 reduction of legal fees in the legal department. Next one is $30,500 reduction for the motorcycle equipment for the police department. The next item is $80,000 reduction for the City Hall security lighting plan. The next item is $11,475 for City Hall lights. The next item is $10,000 for the Convention and Visitors Bureau drive-through window. And I think
I think you read them all. What I wanted you to read were the ones that passed.
I thought I did.
No.
That's the ones that passed.
Those are the ones, I read the ones that were passed that would reduce the budget staff. Is that what you have?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
I apologize. These are the reductions. No, you're right. I've got it confused. You're correct.
Don't confuse me.
I apologize.
I get confused really easy. Staff, do you have the total reduction?
Oh, 1 sec. The reduction to the general fund is $204,475. The reduction to the capital projects fund would be $80,000, and the reduction to the hotel motel fund would be $10,000.
Do we have a motion to approve the budget with those amendments?
I think we already do, by definition, don't we?
No, we don't. We need a motion.
We had a motion, and then we've had amendments approved or not throughout. So we already have a motion.
But I'm asking for confirmation if we got a motion to approve that budget with those amendments.
I'm not making it. I already did.
All right. Is that appropriate to vote that way, Mr. Davidson? All right. We have a motion with amendments. All in favor of the motion?
I do have
further discussion.
Two other things, and I'm not sure these need to be motions. They may be able to be agreed upon, but two items on what we've line item called them. One being the special events that we've put forward, which now that things changed many times, I'm not sure what that number is, but what I've seen on the line item descriptions is still under supplies. I don't know if that has changed somewhere, but I would like to suggest that we change that to being special events so it's clear what those dollars are for. I don't know that it has to be an official vote to do that, but just so it's clear what that is. And then under transportation, we have $200,000, I think the number is, for road safety program. And I've said this several times, that it's not intended to paint stop bars and put reflectors and all the things that it's turned into. The whole intention for that was minor short-term road improvements that we could do, like adding a stripe somewhere or adding a little part of a lane that would help a specific intersection in a short-term manner. And somehow it got shifted into being the safety thing, which is a good thing, but it's not really what that was intended. So I would like to also change that from the road safety program to being the minor short-term road improvement program. So I don't know, again, whether that requires a motion.
I think that one would. That's a capital project, something that carries a number and a history with it of prior expenditures, so it would be up to the council to determine that that's now what it's going to be for, and that's the name we're going to call it.
Then I would like to make that motion because, again, the original intention for that money was to do things that could help specific intersections in a very short-term manner, to do minor improvements, not to do general road safety. So I would like to make that motion. And I wrote down that number because I was able to find that one. Account number 522205 to change from the road safety program to the minor short-term road improvements program.
Could we get a clear definition of what it could be used for now versus what it could be used for if this amendment is made? If it's the same, it's the same, but if it's a change, we'd like a clarification.
It is a change from the program as it was originally designed. Would allow many things like a pedestrian countdown or stop bar or things that improved an intersection as well as safety. I think what Councilman Eichelhardt is saying is his original kind of quick fix list that he brought forward several years ago was for more of a true intersection improvement impact, which might be a lane or some type of particular short-term fix until we could get an intersection improvement designed or through the process.
What I would like to know is, as currently captioned, what could it be spent on? And if we change the purpose, as Councilman Eichelhardt has proposed, what could be spent on, so we know the difference in the two?
Councilman Eichelhardt, are the items that you would want to preclude something like a ped countdown, a stop bar, those things, or
no,
I'm
not to preclude those. And as you said, any change to an intersection can be for vehicles or pedestrians or bikes or whatever. But it has morphed into being something that is really just stop bars in neighborhood or all kinds of stuff that really is not what the original intention was. So that's what I'm trying to get it back to what it was originally intended for.
We can call it a safety project fund. We can call it a quick fix fund. We can call it minor intersection improvements. The honest truth, though, is that to add a turn lane is not going to cost $10,000 or $50,000. It's probably going to cost, quite a bit more than that, maybe $100,000, $150,000. And so $200,000 is not going to do much to improve an intersection. You could add pedestrian countdown timers. You could restripe crosswalks. You could make some very minor changes. You could add a phase to a traffic signal for a left turn movement or something like that. But $200,000 is not really going to go very far at one location.
Right. And that's what was intended, was that we couldn't do major asphalt changes, but in places like Henry, I think this has been done, where there was enough asphalt there to restripe, allow an extra turn lane, and have the light change to where it actually allowed that. And it wasn't intended to do a whole bunch. It may just do one or two a year, and it really was intended to be a start and then hopefully increase over time. But clearly that's not going to happen in the short term. But it was little stuff like that, where it add a turn, we had 10 feet already there. It's not too hard to restripe and put a turn signal there. So that's what the intention was, just like what you said. And I do understand, adding a lane literally with asphalt is way out of that price.
I'm
But there's
just-
minor fixes.
I'm sorry, I'm just afraid that the cost of adding a turn lane or modifying a turn lane is a good bit more than what we're talking about right now.
I disagree. I mean, I do agree on the big picture, but we've already done it at Hembry for relatively. I think Hembry's the right one, but a relatively small amount that has made a big difference, and I think we can do it in other places as well.
This is my question, and I appreciate the intent, but as far as application of the budget and what the money can be spent for, will it make any difference what we call it? And if it does, then we need to know what the difference is. If it doesn't make any difference, let's vote on it.
Well, the reason I'm bringing it up is because it has. It's shifted to being spending things it really wasn't intended for.
Perhaps the correct label for it would be a quick fix intersection improvement list or something like that.
I think for purposes of the council having to make that decision, it can still be called road safety program. An intersection improvement does typically improve the safety, congestion mitigation, or accidents, or whatever. I think the council could provide the guidelines before we spent that money of the items that you would like to see on the menu of options. And if it's not on the menu of options, we don't bring that forward.
Let me rephrase it. If we change the name, are we limiting what we can spend it on, or are we expanding what we can spend it on? Are we increasing the things we can spend it on if we change the name? Are we reducing the things that we spend it on if we change the name? Or is there no change at all?
It's semantics to me.
So there's no change at all?
Well, the guidance would be different, but then they're just words. I mean, what is a minor intersection improvement? Road safety program to me is a little more broad.
So it would be
minor
up to
or
the council
short-term.
how to interpret
Absolutely,
that.
as it is now.
Okay.
And we don't have to do this right now, frankly. It doesn't have to be part of the process, but figured as long as we're here. But I would like then to discuss this, because this has been brought up in a committee meeting, and I brought the exact same objections up before, and here we come again all over again.
Is this something we can clarify in committee?
Yes, I believe so.
Do you wish to make a motion at this time?
No, sir. If I think I did, I'd withdraw that motion.
All right. Are there any further amendments to the list of changes, of the list of cuts that Kay Love read? So I understand yes.
No changes. I have some comments.
Well, if you would like to make some comments, it's appropriate to hear them now before we entertain a vote.
All right. Try and make it quick, but we're coming to the end of a very long and arduous process for this budget, and it's been very long for all of us involved, because it did start earlier than it has before. And it's definitely been arduous for staff, because they've had a lot of work to do on making cuts and finding shortfalls or covering shortfalls and investigating possible other cuts that we've asked them to look for. So everyone has done a great job, and I mean that across the board from all the staff that's worked on that. And I know that they have done a great job and worked hard on that. That's both for the staff who are here tonight as well as those who are not. And also specifically want to point out the great work done by our budget staff, because you guys have worked these things over and over, and I'm sure you'll be very happy after tonight to at least take a break off this for a minute. But I do want to thank you for all that hard work. And what I'm about to say is not a reflection on any of that hard work. But the cold reality is that even after all that's been done, we're still, it was $800, now we're about $600,000 in the hole. And if some of the projections I've heard from some other folks that we could actually have that reducing even further, we could still be in the hole even more. And so we are having to pull from savings to pay for what we've always called ongoing cost, and that's really not a good business decision for private or public. And frankly, the journey's not been too arduous for us on the council. We just haven't taken, I think, a very hard look across the board and tried to push for a number of cuts that could happen and really compared projects that should or shouldn't be funded. And we haven't asked a lot of the tougher questions. And as I said before, we started some of that and got attacked for a number of things. And I don't think anybody would say I've generally been intimidated by much. So that's not the point. But there are discussions that just weren't worth having at some point. But even the best run corporation does look for things that they can always do better. And I think that we're run very well. But we do have things that we can do better. And it's only after that I think we should then start looking under the mattress for some of the cash we may have there. And we haven't heard an outcry from citizens this time, and we can see that there's not that many folks here. And I think it's because we're not raising taxes. But we really, right now, don't have the money to maintain what we have, and we'll see that in the next few years, that as we try and meet those things, we are going to evaporate that what's now, 20 million, 29 million, whatever that number was, but started at 16 this year. And we're going to spend that very quickly. We're already dipping into it even now. And it's going to reach a point within the next few years that we won't even have the money to repave our roads, and that's been a continual thing that we need to do. And we just haven't operated as if that's a reality coming in the short term. And those are real impacts to our citizens and to the services. So I hope we'll realize that at some point. And we get into other capital needs like fire trucks, police cars, sidewalks, you name it. We're basically out of money when it comes to doing that. And all these road projects we're talking about, it's not there either in the very short term. Last year we didn't act when we were told that we thought we were going to have less revenue than we hoped, and that actually proved to be true. We had to cut during the year. And again, I'm not blaming the staff or anyone for what happened along that way, but we didn't make the tough decisions at that time to make the cuts when we needed to, and we were forced to do it later. And I'm just afraid that we're not doing that again for this upcoming year and for the future. So, I just think that's our responsibility to make those tough decisions, and I'll be more than happy. Any cuts that I put forward were to impact us all across the board. Of any deferred compensation, any furlough aspect, I think that applied to all of us, and I'm more than happy to have that apply. And I personally have not done the deferred compensation just out of principle, because that's a cost I don't think we should bear for the city. I've also not gone to a number of places. I'm not going to Savannah like some of the other folks, because I don't think we should have that cost put forward. So I do think, again, it's our responsibility to make these decisions and to ask those tough questions. And I'm afraid that this budget, as it stands, just hasn't done that, because, again, we're in the hole and we're okay with that, and I'm not.
Anyone else wish to comment before we take a vote? I also would like to thank staff for the long hours. This has been the toughest budget I've seen in 12 years. But I think the staff has done the best job they've ever done in 12 years. I think this is a very well-drafted budget. I think it deals with the hard problems. And I think it shows that the council was very wise in setting aside a reserve when times were good, to take us through the times that were tough. After this year, we'll have, in which we're drawing down $1 million and change to pay for new police cars. And that's all we're drawing down from reserves to pay for. We're still going to have, and some capital expenditures, some investments, so we're taking money, it's sitting in the bank and investing it when the prices are low, which is a great idea. But as far as operating the city, we're only taking down $1.1 million from this fund. After that, we'll still have $24 million, as Mr. Irwin showed with a pro forma. We'll be able to indefinitely proceed with a sustainable budget unless we decide to continue making large capital expenditures. If we wish to consider making large capital expenditures to improve the city of Roswell, which I think is a good idea, we'll either need to borrow the money or raise some, or increase our revenues by improving the property values in this city, or at the last resort raising taxes, which I would not support. But I think we've got a good budget. I think we've got the best run city in the state, and I want to thank the council for making it, for looking at and asking the hard questions and coming up with an excellent budget. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That's Councilman Orlins, Councilman Tollison, Councilman Wynn. All opposed. Councilman Henry, Councilman DePolito, Councilman Eichelhart. I am very much in favor of this budget. It's a great budget, and I move for it. Passes 4-3. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. We're going to take a break. I'm taking a break. This time, Mr. Davidson, do we need to read the ordinance on the millage rate?
Yes. Thank you. This is an ordinance to adopt the millage rate. Now, therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell wish to establish a millage rate of 5.455. The millage rate has a component of 4.059 for the general fund operating and capital improvements budget, and a 1.396 mils component for servicing bonded indebtedness. The millage rate may require adjustment upon approval of a certified tax digest for the year 2009. And if approved, this will be the second reading.
Do we have a motion for approval? Motion by Councilmember Becky Wynn. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Tollison. I see that Councilman Orleans is absent, but I think we still have a quorum. Is there anyone in the audience have any questions or comments?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Come forward.
My name is Morton Schlossman. I live on Henry Forest Circle. I have a question about the sentence that reads, the millage rate may require adjustment upon approval of a certified tax digest for the year 2009. Now, Mr. Irwin, in his presentation, made mention of his discounting the tax digest from the previous year. That is, he was assuming that the tax digest would be lower, considerably lower. My own feeling is that he wasn't being conservative enough, and I wanted to ask what has been the discussion on the council concerning the possibility that the tax digest for 2009 and 2010 will be even lower than we think it's going to be.
The council has discussed that possibility, and we have considered all the evidence available to us, and the council has to work with what they know. No one has a crystal ball. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Councilman Orleans has returned. Any further discussion by council before we take a vote? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time I'll call upon Council Member Kent Eigelhart.
Trying to help you there. Wave. Hopefully this will be a little easier. Actually, Ms. Love is right down there. We're going to talk about the resolution to establish sustainable development regulations for facilities owned and built by the City of Roswell in the future.
Yes, sir. This resolution would apply to new construction of any city facility where the total project cost exceeds $2 million or a substantial remodel of 5,000 or more of occupied square footage to be renovated. This policy does comply with 3 of the ARC Green Community Certification Program guidelines. The city facilities built and constructed prior to January 1, 2009 are exempted from this resolution. Be happy to answer any questions.
Move to approve the resolution.
Motion.
The next item is approval of a resolution endorsing Making Green Schools a Reality. And again, Ms. Love.
Yes, sir. The United States Conference of Mayors has initiated this to confirm or reconfirm their commitment to the goal that in a generation every child in America would attend a green school. And they are calling on mayors and cities around the country to participate. This resolution simply urges Congress to commit additional research funding to this through H.R. 2187 legislation, which would provide billions of dollars to allow modernization, retrofits, repairs, and certainly building schools. And they do that through a number of things like daylighting, thermal comforting, and classroom design, which will promote the learning environment as well as health and welfare of America's children.
Move to approve. Motion by Councilman Eigelhart for approval. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Next item is the approval of a resolution to submit the 2009 Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Formula Grant Proposal to U.S. Department of Energy for $825,700 with no match.
Yes, sir. This item was funded for the first time by the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. Our formula allocation is $825,700. It is through the U.S. Department of Energy. And the purpose of the program is very broad-based and certainly assist us in one of our initiatives. As you recall, we had a facilities condition assessment done on 33 of the city's facilities to determine what needs we had to maintain and sustain those facilities. There's a large portion of that attributable to the grant requirements of this, mostly in energy efficiency. We have identified much more than $825,000 over the next few years. So the recommendation is for us to apply that towards these energy efficiency improvements, which would include things such as a door, a window, a new HVAC system, lighting, retrofitting, etc.
Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilman Eichelhardt for approval. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Wynn. Does anyone in the audience have any questions? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time I'll call upon Councilmember David Tollison, liaison to the Environmental Public Works Department.
Don't we? So we have one more with.
I apologize, Councilman Eichelhardt.
Sorry. Last item for this section, the approval for signing a renewal contract for excess workers' compensation with Midwest Employers Casualty in the amount of $87,750.60 for the next fiscal year, presented by Diane Whitfield.
City of Roswell is self-insured for workers' compensation. We do carry excess insurance coverage for catastrophic losses. We have had excellent claims experience in this last fiscal year. We are going to be asking for the $87,750, and that is less than a premium of $90,131 of last year.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Eichelhardt. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Does anyone in the audience have any questions? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time I'll call upon Environmental Public Works Department Liaison Councilmember David Tollison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have the first reading of an ordinance to require high-efficiency fixtures in all new government buildings to save water. Mr. Mooring.
Well, first let's have Mr. Davidson read the ordinance.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 24, Utilities and Services of the Roswell Code of Ordinances. Now, therefore, to accomplish the foregoing, the Mayor and Council of the City of Roswell, pursuant to their authority, do hereby adopt the following ordinance. Chapter 24, Article 24.5, Water and Sewer is deleted in its entirety, and a new Article 24.5, Water and Sewer, is substituted, therefore, to read as follows, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the first reading.
Mr. Mooring, you may proceed.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is a change that was recommended by the Green Ribbon Committee, and it relates to the ARC designation. Essentially, this increases the requirements. The current building code since 1992 requires low flow fixtures, water fixtures, and this would require for all municipal buildings to go to high efficiency fixtures, and the differential in flow rates is spelled out there in the ordinance, and I'll be happy to take any further questions.
Any further questions? Does anyone in the audience wish to, do we have a motion? Have we gotten a motion yet?
Oh, move to approve.
Motion by Councilman Tollison for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wynn.
Green Ribbon Committee.
Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
I apologize. It was Green Ribbon Committee. I was waiting for Ken to. The next item is an approval for the mayor and or city administrator to sign a contract with Community Waste Services for the transfer station operations. Mr. Mooring.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Our current transfer station contract will end in December of 2009. We took proposals and received proposals from 3 firms. We evaluated them on the basis of the cost, the experience with solid waste operations, and the customer service record. Based on all of those factors, the recommendation of the review committee was to contract with Community Waste Services at a basic cost service of $32.95 per ton, plus a one-time cost of $73,575 for installation of scales. Other details are spelled out, and I will answer any further questions.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Tollison for approval. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Anyone in the audience have any questions? Any further discussion? Councilman Orleans.
Again, Stu, I just want to mention what we talked about in the work session, that if we can look at trying to add other sources going through and maybe creating some revenue over time, I encourage you to do that.
Yes, sir. We will certainly do that. And one thing that I failed to mention is that this rate per ton represents an 11.6% decrease from the projected cost for next year of $37.27 per ton. So we are saving money.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time I'll call upon Councilmember Jerry Orleans, liaison to the Recreation and Parks Department. Oh, public safety, Councilmember Lori Henry. I apologize, and we'll call upon Councilmember Lori Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only item on our agenda this evening is the approval of a resolution to implement a monthly E911 service charge on each voice over Internet protocol telecommunications connections. Chief.
Thank you. As Mayor and Council knows, our 911 center operates off of this user fee on telephone lines, landlines, and cell phone lines, and has for years. We're the only 911 center that I'm aware of in the metropolitan Atlanta area that operates solely off of the 911 fees and does not have to supplement the operating costs with general fund dollars or other sources of revenue. What this resolution would do, if you approve it, would be to add that same fee that we charge all other telephone lines to the VoIP, the Voice over Internet Protocol. It's a growing segment of the population, of the market rather, that is not covered by the current law. So Georgia changed its law recently, and now we are authorized, each local government that operates a 911 center is authorized to assess this fee. It would be in line with the same fee that everyone else is paying. So if you have your telephone through the computer and not have a landline, then you would have to pay this same fee that your neighbor who has a landline and or a cell phone would have to pay.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember Becky Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, now this is only going to be for someone who pays like a monthly fee or a yearly fee. Am I correct? Because I know there's some VoIPs that's you can buy it and there's no fees after that. So is this just for the people with monthly fees?
This would be for any vendor that we can identify as billing monthly. This is the monthly fee. It is $1.50 per month. I suppose if someone were billed quarterly, it could be arranged that way, but it would be $1.50 per month per user.
Well, because I think Magic Jack is like per year. And
that's the service. I apologize for interrupting.
No, but that's what I was thinking, because that's a VoIP also. But I think they do that per year. So I was just kind of curious if we're going to go with also the people who are being billed per year and not just per month.
If I would assume from this, it's not written in stone. It says we're going to collect $100.50 rather per month, and I would have no problem with it whether it was collected quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. Of course, Magic Jack's fee of $19 is their basic service, just like Bell South charges a whatever they charge, $40-something probably. So this would be in addition to any service provider fee that you pay. And if that's collected annually, I don't see how we could collect it annually without any problem, given this resolution's wording too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Lori Henry. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Anyone in the audience have any questions? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time I'll call upon Councilmember Jerry Orleans with our Recreation and Parks Department liaison.
The item on our agenda tonight is approval of budget amendment 6120-06-1509 to increase expenditures and corresponding revenues in the Recreation Participation Fund for temporary employees, instructor fees, and recreation supplies. And Joe Glover's on vacation. I believe Kay Love is presenting this tonight.
Yes, sir. This is a traditional budget amendment that we do when revenues come into the Rec Participation Fund through user fees paid for the programs that people participate in. This will provide increased expenditure line item funding and recognizing revenue for temporary instructor fees and recreation supplies in the amount of $162,035.
Does the council have any questions? Councilman Eichelhard.
Maybe better for Joe, although I guess Ms. Love would know, or Mr. Orleans might. But there's been some discussion about the recreation fee being in, the folks who are on general fund salaries being shifted into the recreation fee at some point and over time period. Where do we stand on that? And because frankly, that'd be a lot of money over the next few years. But I didn't want to push that forward because we haven't had that discussion at all on exactly where that stands. So I am curious where that stands.
Yeah, it's definitely coming forward. We couldn't really get it together because of the publication that went out for the fall activities. For the following publication, we will have some adjustments. It's being presented to the commission at our next meeting, and it'll be coming to a committee meeting after that. Okay. But yeah, it's moving forward, and we hope to implement it over probably a 2-year period of time to increase the fees to get to that level. And then we've also set up a foundation. Parks and Rec Commission has set up a foundation, a 501c3, and they're going to try to raise money so that we can then also offer scholarships as the fees are adjusted. So it's in process and should be coming through pretty quickly.
All right, and that was a preliminary question, I guess, to clarify. This is not related to that in any way. It's
correct.
Separate from, okay.
No.
Thanks.
Do we have a motion?
Move for approval as stated.
Motion by Councilman Orleans for approval of the budget amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tollison. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time I'll call upon our city attorney for his report.
Thank you, Mayor. As you may know, the mayor vetoed RZ 08-17 at the May 14th meeting. By charter, the council is required to reconsider that action at each meeting. If you reconsider it and don't do anything, we'll go to the next meeting, which would be June 29, 2009.
Do we have a motion?
Move to continue to defer to June 29th.
Motion for deferral by Councilmember DiPolito. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Tollison. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. We have a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel. Do I have a motion? Motion by Councilmember Wynn. A little wimpy, but a motion. Do we have a second?
Wimpy. Motion.
Motion by Councilmember Wynn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Henry. We appreciate that second. All in favor of the motion, raise your hands. Passes unanimously. We're going to have a work session in room 220 to discuss the most important transportation project Roswell has seen since